Oh, hello there. I'm Bilchan.
I'm Nimakung.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you. Chapter 2, Section 1 of Jane Eyre, an Autobiography.
As.
Ah.
Jane Eyre, an Autobiography. Charlotte Brontë. Chapter 2, Section 1. I resisted all the way. A new thing for me. To entertain of me. The fact is, I was a trifle beside myself. Or rather out of myself. As the French would say. I was conscious that a moment's mutiny had already rendered me liable to strange penalties. And then, like any other rebel slave, I felt resolved, in my desperation, to go all lengths, hold her arms, miss a bit. For shame, cried the lady's maid. What shocking conduct, Miss Eyre, to strike a young gentleman, your benefactress's son. Master, how is he my master? No, you are less than a servant, for you do nothing for your keep. There, sit down. They had got me by this time into the apartment indicated by mice. Weed, and had thrust me upon a stool it like a spring. Their two pair of hands arrested me instantly. Don't sit still, you. Must be tied down, said Bessie. Miss Abba, lend me your garters. Necessary ligature. This preparation for bonds and the additional ignominy. It inferred a little of the excitement out of me. Don't take them off, I cried, in guarantee whereof I attach myself to my seat by my hands. You don't, said Bessie, and when she had ascertained that I was really subsiding, she loosened her hold of me, folded arms, looking darkly and thoughtfully on my face, Snitty. She never did. So before, at last, said Bessie, turning to the Abigail. But it was. Always in her, was the reply. Opinion about the child and Mrs. Agreed with me. Thing Bessie and said not but alone. Addressing me, she said, you ought to be aware, Miss, that you are under obligations to mice. Read she. Keeps you, if she were to turn you off, I had nothing to say to these words. They were not new to me. I very first recollections of existence included hints of the same kind. Reproach of my dependence had become a vague sing-song in my ear and crushing, but only half intelligible. Miss Abbott joined in. Not to think you are so funnin'. Equality with the Mrs. Reed and Master Reed, because Mrs. kindly allows you to be brought up with them. A great deal of money, and you will have none place to be humble. What we tell you is for your good, added Bessie. In our harsh place you should try to be useful and pleasant, then perhaps you would have a home here, passionate and rude. Mrs. will send you away. Besides, said Miss Abbott, God will punish her tantrums, and then where will she go? Come, Bessie, leave her. I wouldn't have her hurt for anything. Say your prayers, miss. Eyre, when you are by yourself, for if you don't repent. They went, shutting the door and locking it behind them. A square chamber, very seldom slept in, I might say never. Indeed, turned to account all accommodation it contained, largest and stateliest chambers in the mansion, mahogany hung with curtains of deep red damask. In the centre, the two large windows with their blinds, always drawn down, were half shrouded in festoons and folds of similar drapery. red cloth, the wardrobe, the toilet table, mahogany. Out of these deep surrounding shades rose high and glared white. The piled up mattresses and pillows of the bed spread with the snowy. Mache's cantabin. Scarcely less prominent was an ample cushioned easy chair near the head of the bed, also white with a footstool before it and looking thought like a pale throne. This room was chill. A fire, it was silent because remote from the nursery and kitchen solemn because it was meant to be so seldom entered. Came here on Saturdays, quite just, and might read herself. At foreign intervals to review the contents of a certain secret drawer. In the wardrobe stored divers parchments, her jewel casket, and a miniature of her deceased husband, so lonely in spite of its grandeur. We'd had been dead 9 years. It was in this chamber he breathed his last stake, hence his coffin was borne by the undertakers. Men, and that day a sense of dreary consecration had guarded it from frequent intrusion. Seat to which Bessie and the bitter miss Up it had left me riveted was a low ottoman near the marble chimney piece. The bed rose before me, to my right hand there was the high dark wardrobe with subdued broken reflections spraying the gloss of its funnels windows room. I was not quite sure whether they had locked the door. When I dared move, I got up and went to see us. It's no jail was ever more secure. Returning before the looking glass, my fascinated glance involuntarily explored the depth it revealed, both colder and darker, a visionary hollow than in reality. Little figure there gazing at me, gloom and glittering eyes. A fear moving where all else was still, the effect of a real spirit. Phantoms, half fairy, half Pavlovan. Fair needles immersed travellers. I returned to my stool. Superstition was with me at that moment, but it was not yet her hour for complete victory, warm vigour to the dismal present. All John Reed's violent journeys, all his sister's proud indifference, all his mother's aversion, all the servant's partiality disturbed mind like a dark deposit in a turbid well, suffering, always probated, always accused forever. Condemned? Never pleased. Why was it useless to try to win any one's favour? Lies that he was headstrong and selfish, was respected. Georgiana, a slow temper, a very acrid spite, a captious and insolent courage, was universally indulged. Her beauty, her pink cheeks and golden curls, to give delight to all who looked at her every fault. John no one thwarted, much less punished. The necks of the pigeons cut the little chicks the sheep, stripped the house vines of their fruit off the choicest plants in the conservatory. He called his mother old girl too, sometimes reviled her for her dark skin, similar to his own, disregarded her wishes. Not unfrequently torn, but her silk attire was still her own darling. I dared commit no outfit, every duty, and I was termed naughty. Tiresome, sullen and seeking from morning to noon, and from noon to night, bled with the blow and fall I had received for wantonly striking me irrational violence. I was loaded with general opprobrium, and unjust, said my reason, by the gnussing stimulus into precocious though transitory power, and resolve up instigated some strange expedient to achieve escape from insupportable oppression is running away, or if that could not be effected, never eating or drinking more and letting myself die. What a consternation! A soul was my naturi afternoon. How my brain was in tumult, and all my heart in insurrection. Yet in what darkness, what dense ignorance was the mental battle fought! I could not answer. His ceaseless inward question my eye this suffered now the distance of a will. Not say how many years, I see it clearly. Was a discord. Each she told, I was like nobody there, nothing in harmony with mice. We'd or her children or her children's was vassalage. If they did not love me, in fact love them, not sympathise with. One amongst them a heterogeneous thing, temperament, incapacity. In propensities a useless thing, their interest, hoarding. To their pleasure a noxious thing, germs of indignation at their treatment. Of contempt of their judgment, that had I been a sanguine. Brilliant, careless, exacting, handsome, romping, childeful equally. Dependent and friendlessomas, we would have endured my presence more complacently. Our children would have entertained for me more of the cordiality of fellow-feeling, the servants would have been less prone to make me the scapegoat of the nursery. Daylight began to forsake the Red Room. It was past 4 o'clock, beclouded afternoon was tending to drear twilight. On the staircase window and the windhelling, in the grove behind the hall, I grew by degrees cold as a stone. And then my courage sank, my habitual mood of humiliation, self-doubt, forlorn depression, the embers of my decaying Eyre, all said I was wicked. I might be so, myself to death. That certainly was a crime, die. Or was the vault under the chancel of Gateshead Church an inviting bourne? In such vault I had been told did Mr. Reed lie buried, and led by this thought to recall his idea, gathering dread. I could not remember him, house, and that in his last moments he had required a promise of mine. We that she would rear and maintain me as one of her own children. My Reed probably considered she had kept this promise, had, I dare say, as well as her nature would permit her, but how could she be like an interloper not of her race with her, after her husband's death, by any tie, instead of a parent, to a strange child she could not love, see an uncongenial alien permanently intruded on her own family group, upon me? I doubted it, never doubted that if Mr. would have treated me kindly, and now began to recall what I had heard of dead men by the violation of their last wishes, and avenge the oppressed, and I thought Mr. Reed's spirit, the wrongs of his sister's child, or in the unknown world of the departed, and rise before me in this chamber. I wiped my tears and hushed my sobs. Grief might waken a preternatural voice to comfort me, some hallowed face bending over me with strange pity. This idea, in theory, I felt would be terrible if realised. I endeavoured to stifle it. He endeavoured to be firm. I lifted my head and tried to look boldly round the dark room. At this moment a light gleamed on the wall. Was it, asked myself, a ray from the moon penetrating some aperture in the blind? No, moonlight was still in it. This stirred while I gazed, glided up to the ceiling and covered over my head. Readily that this streak of light was in all likelihood the lantern carried by someone across the lawn, but then my mind was for her, shaken as my nerves were by agitation. Thought the swift darting beam was the herald of some coming vision from another world. My heart beat thick, my head grew hot, ears which I deemed the rushing of wings. Something seemed near me. I was abreast, suffocated, endurance broke down and shook the lock in desperate effort. Steps came running along the outer passage. He turned, Bessie, and a bit entered. Miss Eyre, said Bessie. What a dreadful noise! It went quite through me, exclaimed Obbit. Me yet. Let me go into the nursery, was my cry. What for? Are you hurt? Have you seen something? Again demanded Bessie. A light of Bessie's end, and she did not snatch it from. Then, at on purpose, declared a bit in some disgust. And what? A scream. If she had been in great pain, one would have excused it. Only wanted to bring us all here peremptorily, and We'd came along the corridor, her cap flying wide, her gong wassailing stormily. Abbott and Bessie Miss Jane screamed so loud. Mem, pleaded Bessie. Let her go was the only answer. Those Bessies. And, child, you cannot succeed in getting out by these means. Be assured, I abhor artifice, particularly in children, Yvette. Tricks will not answer. You will now stay here an hour longer. All it. Have pity. Forgive me. Be punished some other. Oi. Silence. So no doubt she felt it. Her eyes, she sincerely looked on me as a compound of virulent. Passions mean spirit and dangerous duplicity. This saying about having retreated. My street. Impatient of my now frantic and wish and wild. Sobs and locked me in without farther parley. I heard her sweeping away, and soon after she was gone, I suppose I had a species of fit. My consciousness closed the scene. To be continued.